We'll call the Willmar City Council meeting for Monday, April 2nd to order. Roll call.
Mayor Calvin.
Here.
Councilmember Nelson. Here. Christensen.
Here.
Schwantes. Here. Alvarado.
Here.
Osmus. Here. Maskey.
Here.
Plowman.
Here.
Fagerly.
Here.
9 present, 0 absent.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any proposed additions or deletions to the agenda? Councilmember Schwantes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to pull F, the resolution to approve the contract amendment to the Civic Center refrigeration project.
Okay. Councilmember Nelson.
I would like to pull J just for questions and comments.
Okay. City Administrator Holland.
Mayor, staff and I would request that item 13, consideration of reallocation of funds, be pulled from the agenda.
Okay. Councilmember Meske.
Just a point of order that we are doing apparently 4 and 7 at the same time.
You're right. We didn't approve the agenda yet, is what he's saying.
My intent was to adjust the agenda. So I'm not on item number 7 yet. So
My apologies.
we are pulling item 13 from the agenda and adding nothing else. Motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Aye.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. That motion does carry. Now, there's been a request to pull items F and J from the consent items, with the exception of those two. Ms. Thompson.
On the consent agenda this evening for council's approval of the City Council special meeting minutes of March 12th, the City Council meeting minutes of March 19th, Willmar Municipal Utilities Board minutes of March 26th, Planning Commission minutes of March 21st, a resolution to adopt statutory municipal liability coverage limits, resolution to approve contract amendment to Civic Center.
That's been pulled. F has been pulled and J has been pulled.
Yes. A resolution to approve PFA funding for Armory and Gorton Avenue lift stations. Central, and for council's approval or acceptance would be the Central Community Transit minutes of January 23rd, Willmar Lakes Area CVB Board minutes of February 20th, monthly building report for February 18, and the accounts payable through March 28th of 2018.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to approve with the exception of items F and J. Discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Nelson.
Aye.
Christensen.
Aye.
Schwantes.
Aye.
Alvarado.
Aye.
Osmus.
Aye.
Maskey.
Aye.
Plowman.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That motion passes. Next, Councilmember Schwantes, resolution to approve contract amendment to Civic Center refrigeration project.
Thank you. I would just like to have staff comment on the additional expense of $26,900, just to clarify what that all entails. And I'll be honest, my concern is just to confirm the number of sheets of ice that is going to be supporting.
Mr. Holland, do you want to address that, or do you want Mr. Christensen? Mr. Christensen?
Mayor, members of council, that takes us from the original base, if you will, of one refrigeration system to include refrigeration system for both buildings that are currently there and expanded resurfacer room facility, if you will, so that the Zamboni doesn't have to go outside. It's got heat exchange or heat reuse of that ice melting facility.
Thank you.
So to answer your question, that is for 2 buildings. The existing 2 buildings that are there is all that will entail.
Thank you.
You might want to say it at the podium. Did you want to introduce a motion to approve that then?
I do. Thank you very much. Yes, motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve that. I have a question for you. On the upgrade to the electrical services for the new switchgear, is that something that would normally be done by municipal utilities, or is this the switch box within the building itself?
This is under the same addendum?
Correct.
The same, yeah, that would be, no, that's not for them. That's for this project. It's for the switchgear and the equipment for the Civic Center building itself.
Okay, so what it says is upgrade electrical services for Blue Line Arena with new switchgear to accommodate electrical loads for the refrigeration system.
Right, so because.
So that's all within the building?
Correct.
It's not the stuff that's in the street?
Correct.
Okay. There's been a motion and a second to approve the resolution. Additional discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Christensen.
Aye.
Schwantes.
Aye.
Alvarado.
Aye.
Osmus.
Aye.
Maskey.
Aye.
Plowman.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
And that resolution does pass. Next is the item J, Willmar CER Joint Powers Board minutes of March 23rd. Councilmember Nelson.
I just wanted to have a conversation. First of all, they aren't minutes because we didn't have a quorum. They are notes. I'm struggling with the direction, the concern, I think, for the Community Ed and Rec Advisory Board in that they are working very hard to try to understand the changes in what we have done with the Community Ed and Rec agreement. And I have to tell you that I cannot answer those questions when I go to the meeting. I do not know for sure what is staying in that contract and what is not staying in that agreement. And I think I've had conversations with a couple of people who have expressed some of those same concerns. And so I just wanted to make sure that you do have read this or study it. They are asking how they can make a change, some changes that they see should probably take place in that agreement. I believe it's probably too late to do that, but I don't know that for sure. They had very good questions, and I think also with the question of what is their role going to be. And so I am asking that somehow we sit down as a council and try to clarify what this new agreement means, what's still in the agreement, what's not, and what is the role of the advisory board going to be, as well as how does the park board, what will happen with the park board. So I just wanted you to know that these aren't minutes, and I wanted to share my concerns.
Would you like to approve the notes from the meeting?
Yes, I can do that.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the notes from the Community Ed and Rec Joint Powers Board on March 23rd, 2018. Discussion. Councilmember Maskey.
With the concerns just raised by Councilmember Nelson, is there, I know we were going to revisit this, is it 18 months, the agreement? In that interim, if there are changes made, can that be amended within that 18 months period?
Yes, I mean, it's a general agreement, and so, yes, if both parties agree, we can always amend it.
So the direction that the group is choosing to go, at least in the notes, is an acceptable direction, and if they come up with recommendations that both sides can agree to, those changes could happen?
Yes.
Thank you.
Councilmember Nelson.
I just would like to speak. I think it would be in our best interest to have this on our agenda in the near future. I just am concerned about the direction that we're going right now without knowing. We've got jobs that need to be hired. There have been a lot of concerns about the position at the community center. I think there is a concern for me with what is Public Works going to have to pick up, what are some of the others. And so I would ask for some sort of direction from the council to assist the advisory board.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the Joint Powers Board minutes of notes of March 23rd. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. That motion does carry. Staff, if we can get that as an agenda item, we'll need clarification, but we can make it work on that together.
I have it on the agenda for a work session on May 7th, tentatively.
Thank you. Will that be soon enough? What I'm hearing you say is that you want some council input on the direction that you should be
Yes.
giving to the advisory committee.
But I am concerned that we don't go ahead and start hiring before we've provided that clarification, both for the community center and for replacing Mr. Bresendine.
Mr. Holland, do you know when the posting is scheduled to go out for Mr. Bresendine's position?
That should be going out, I want to say, either this week or next week. I'm sorry, I didn't hear exactly. Did you say you wanted to hold? Is your request to hold on that hiring?
I am concerned about the information that's in the minutes for the concerns that were raised about both education and recreation, but I also am concerned about the community center position, and that I think our current director is already in the process of hiring, and I don't think that's been clarified yet with is it a city employee, is it a school employee? And so I am concerned about that. It sounds like by the time we will discuss it, it'll be well underway. So is there any way we can do it at the next session and put a hold on those hiring?
Well, I think the first thing that we need to do is we need to have consensus of the council that we want to hold the hiring process. So if you want to make that as a motion, and if we receive a second, we can have discussion on that, and then we would be able to give that direction. Otherwise, if staff is anticipating to post the position this week, I don't know how that would work. Councilmember Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Refresh me again on the hiring committee for Mr. Bresendine's office. Is it the school and the city? Is it just the school because he's
It's the
employee?
school and the city, and the administrators sit on that, and then they can add to that committee at their direction. But it's the administrator for the city and the school board superintendent are the two that
actually hire him?
that are appointed or that are approved in the contract to do the hiring of that one position.
Okay.
Is that correct?
That is correct, Mayor.
Yes. Do you want to make that motion?
But that position is an employee of the school, where we just give half the salary. Okay.
Can I just ask a clarification? Was the job description updated?
Yes, it was.
So has that been shared with anyone?
I don't think we've sent that out anywhere. It's, the HR director is working on that. We met, not last week, but the week before that, I want to say, and I was out last week, so I don't have any knowledge as of right now, but when we get that, we can send that out.
And is the job for the community center has been posted?
That job also, no, it's not been posted yet? Okay. But it's about to be posted, my understanding, yes.
Okay.
And my understanding, that would be a city position.
I guess I feel strongly about this. If we can move it to the next meeting, I will make a motion to delay those until we've had a chance to review those.
I'll second it.
Motion been made to delay or to recommend to the school board or to the school superintendent that we delay the hiring process on the community ed and rec director, and that staff delay the position, hiring the position for the community center. Motion been made and seconded. Discussion. Councilmember Maskey.
What are we looking to gain for information through a delay?
Councilmember Nelson.
I just think if you go back to the minutes, there's a clarification as to whether it is being looked at both as education and recreation qualifications. And we did not, in our agreement, it does not state that clearly with that. I think for the community center delay, I think there has been a real concern that that should be a city employee versus a combined employee of city and school, and what those job functions are. And I have not seen that information either. And so that's what I guess I'm looking for, is just a clarification, and what changes have been made to the job description might also be helpful. The advisory board, we're asking those questions too, but it might also be helpful that would kind of clarify what's going to stay in there from the city standpoint and what's going to stay in there from the school standpoint.
Thank you. And then the question then would be, with what Councilmember Nelson is asking, is that something that can be gathered in what kind of a time frame from staff, I guess?
Well, my understanding is the administrator stated that the job description has already been amended. Our HR director said that the position would be a city position. That's already been stated.
It'll be 60/40 is my understanding. And then also, yeah, we've the HR directors and Mr. Brizendine has rewritten, both those positions. And then myself and Dr. Holmes, we reviewed the CR director position, and then we did that. So, I mean, we can put a hold on it, and you can get copies of it. You just have to remember that, when you say city position, these are CER positions. These positions do not belong to the city per se. They're part of the CER.
Okay, now I'm confused, because originally when the question was asked, is it a city position? I seen affirmative, it was a city position. So it's not a city position, it's a community ed and rec.
Maybe I'm looking at it differently, but, there's the CER, and then there's the city, and then there's the school.
Right,
And I look at it, these are CER positions,
okay. So that's not a city position, it's a joint position.
yes.
Okay.
I think that's part of the confusion with what people were reading into the agreement, because part of it says that people who do city functions will be city employees, and people who do school functions will be school employees, and that there can be a trading back and forth. But in the case of the community center, I think that the community center advisory board and other people feel strongly that that should be a city employee. And I don't believe that that's how it was presented, at least the information that I saw, was that it was not going to be. And I'm not sure about what the shared job descriptions will be. I think that's always been a question of what FTEs are where when you look at city positions or school positions or community ed and rec. And so all I'm just asking is for clarification on those items before we go ahead and enter into this agreement, because I think we should enter into the agreement with the intent of doing it the way what's best for the community, I think is the right way to say that.
Councilor Christensen.
Once again, the Labor Committee probably could have discussed this and brought it to the council.
So I have a procedural question, Mr. Scott. So this is an agreement. We signed the agreement with the school district. So we have a signed contract in place between the city and the school district to move this process forward. If we take an action, can it be a formal action to block it? Or is it a suggestion and they can still move forward with it because the checks are actually written by the school district, not by the city?
Mayor, members of the council, and I apologize, I don't have the agreement that was just approved in front of me today, as I didn't anticipate questions on it. My recollection, though, is that you were kind of moving away from CER as an independent entity that would have its own employees, for example, so that any employee we're discussing would really be either a school district employee or a city employee. My recollection is that this position, this essentially the CER director would be a school district employee. So I think the city, as a party to this contract, could certainly recommend or make a request to the county that they hold off on proceeding to fill this position or posting the position for a couple weeks. I don't know that the county is necessarily,
School district.
I'm sorry, I said county, I meant school. The school district, I don't think would be required to follow that request, but you can certainly make it, and you're partners to the agreement. It's a good chance it'll be followed.
Okay. So the motion on the table that has been seconded is to recommend to the hiring authority to delay the posting of the position for the community ed and rec director and the community ed and rec employee at the civic center. I'm sorry, the community center. That's the understanding of the council, and that's the understanding of the makers of the motion, correct? So I have it right? Councilmember Nelson?
And I ask that we do that in 2 weeks.
Correct, yes, right. Councilmember Fagerly?
I think it's two separate issues.
I do too.
It really is.
Be two motions.
I'm willing to divide that into 2 motions. They are 2 separate positions, but until we figure out what we've agreed to, I see them as a combined issue. But I'm fine with doing 2 separate motions if you feel that that's necessary.
Just seconded the motion in favor of that as well. The first motion is to request that the hiring authorities delay the process of the position for the community ed and rec director for 2 weeks. All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign.
Aye.
2 to 6.
Yep.
Roll call.
Councilmember Schwantes?
Aye.
Alvarado?
Aye.
Osmus?
Nay.
Maskey?
Aye.
Plowman?
Aye.
Fagerly?
No.
Nelson?
Aye.
Christensen?
Aye.
6
motion-
ayes, 2 nays.
That motion passes. The next is to recommend to the hiring authority delaying the filling of the position for the community and rec position working at the community center. Discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Alvarado?
Aye.
Osmus? Aye. Maskey?
Aye.
Plowman?
Aye.
Fagerly?
Aye.
Nelson?
Aye.
Christensen?
Aye.
Schwantes?
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
Mayor,
That motion passes. Mr. Holland.
just a point of clarification. Did I hear correctly? That motion was to withhold the hiring of the CER position for 2 weeks?
Yes.
But we're not hiring right now. I mean, we haven't even put out the search yet. We have about 90 days. Mr. Brizendine leaves June 30th, and so we were going to advertise in the month of April, and then we were going to do interviews in May, and then bring that person on board in June. We have to give them generally 2 to 4 weeks before they move here. So we don't want to delay that, do we?
I believe the council just said they did.
Okay. But I guess what I'm saying is we're not hiring anyone in the month of April. We're only submitting requests for interviews or, applications.
The question is in the job description. You can't send out a job without the job description. So the
Okay.
question is within the job descriptions. And I don't know how you can post a position if there's disagreement on what the job description states.
Okay, so that's what I wanted clarification. So it's more of a hold on the position description. I understand. Okay.
Next is the open forum. Is there anybody that signed up for the open forum? I don't have the clipboard.
No, Mr. Mayor, there's no one that signed up.
Okay. Next is a presentation of Emergency Management Director Practitioner Qualifications by the Department of Homeland Security Emergency Management, Gina Hayes. Ms. Hayes, thank you for driving out from the Twin Cities today, and hopefully your drive was uneventful.
Thank you. Mayor and City Council, thank you for having me. My name is Gina Hayes, and I'm with the Department of Public Safety, Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Management. And I'm here today to present the Basic Emergency Management Certificate to Frank Hansen. Frank has completed just over 151 hours of training for this certificate, and I wanted to thank the City Council for allowing his time to do so. He is a valuable asset to your city, the county, and the state. So thank you very much, and congratulations, Frank.
I think you got to do that handshake one more time.
We should have it.
And we have the Emergency Management Director for Candidacy County here, Ms. Kim Lindahl, and also the Assistant Emergency Management Director, Ace Bonema. So thank you guys for being here as well. Ms. Hayes, thank you for driving out. Hopefully your trip back will be uneventful as well. So thank you guys for being here. Now you certainly can sit through the rest of the meeting, but you can certainly leave too if you wish. So. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Chief Hansen, for all the work that you put into that. So appreciate that. Next is a hearing considering the ordinance to repeal soft drink sales licensing. And I will open that public hearing. Mr. Scott, our city attorney, will present this ordinance request.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Before you have a draft ordinance that would repeal sections 8-156 through 8-160 in your city code. Those sections impose licensing regimen on any business that conducts or operates any place where soft drinks are mixed, sold, or dispensed for consumption on the premises. The city clerk and I believe the police chief had identified this licensing requirement as no longer relevant or serving an important governmental purpose, and had recommended that the council repeal those sections. The ordinance before you does that simply by reference. Each of those sections would be repealed and no longer of effect. The recommendation is that you adopt the ordinance, assign it a number, and publish it.
Okay, and my understanding is that this would take effect January 1 of 2019.
Sorry, Mayor, that would be effective December 31st, because our licensing starts January 1st
December 31st of 2018.
of 2018.
Okay.
Correct.
Thank you. Is there anybody from the public that wishes to speak to this public hearing? Seeing and hearing none, we'll bring it to the council table. Council, what are your wishes?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion been made and approved to approve an ordinance to repeal soft drink licenses, assign it a number, and publish it. Discussion. Councilmember Plowman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to give major kudos to our city clerk and to our police chief. And just note for the future, more kudos to come for anybody who can find unnecessary taxes and fees to abolish. Thank you.
Additional comments? Councilmember Fagerly.
Just a question. Do we do vending machines yet? License them? And for what reason then?
Next.
We'll have staff look into that.
I'll have to check on that, and I'm going to review several of the licenses and, do some research on them. Okay?
Thank you.
Anything else for the question? All in favor of repealing the soft drink sales licensing requirement, ordinance assigning the number and publish it? Roll call.
Councilmember Osmus?
Aye.
Maskey?
Aye.
Plowman?
Aye.
Fagerly?
Aye.
Nelson?
Aye.
Christensen?
Aye.
Schwantes?
Aye.
Alvarado?
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That resolution passes. Next, I will open the public hearing to consider zoning ordinance text amendment relating to shopping center districts. Mr. Peterson.
Mayor Kelvin, members of the council, a while back, the Planning Commission was asked to take a look at the variety of uses that are allowed in the shopping center districts because of changes to shopping with the internet economy. There's been a lot of major impacts on shopping malls and retail shopping as a whole. The Planning Commission did take a look at the zoning ordinance and put a lot of time into reviewing what was allowed in the shopping center districts and what could possibly be allowed in a shopping center district. The ordinance that is in front of you tonight includes those expanded lists of uses, either permitted uses or with plan review. And it also includes an expanded conditional use permit section as well, dealing with those types of uses. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on the text amendment in February, and the amendment was introduced by the council on March 12th. It's a recommendation of staff that the ordinance be adopted, assigned a number, and published.
Okay, is there anybody from the public that wishes to speak during this public hearing? Seeing and hearing none, I'll close the public hearing, bring it to the council. Council, what are your wishes?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the text amendment ordinance relating to shopping center districts, assign it a number and publish it. Discussion. Councilmember Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We didn't get the full ordinance on here, so the list that we have, are those all additions, or some of them are already on there, I'm assuming?
Right. What you have is a matrix of what was there and what's proposed to be added.
Okay. Were commercial daycares there already? I mean, what on
Yes.
this? Also, glass sales, interior design stores, they were already, so why do we have that list then? Were some added, or was it just, that there's a couple?
They may have changed the way they addressed them. They may have been called something different previously, but generally, what this ordinance did is amend the total number of uses to give the owner of mall properties much greater discretion in the uses that they can allow to try to keep that tax base or that asset functioning for the community, because a lot of communities have big malls sitting empty. So without answering your question directly, it was Sarah that was primarily involved in working with the uses with the Planning Commission. I can tell you that I think there was probably 20 or more total uses added to
There
that
was,
district.
okay,
Yes.
because I couldn't tell from the list, but I mean, truck sales and service at a mall? That was on there already too?
Yeah, because we already had that at one point. It was part of the Kmart, and they had tire sales and service center in there, and that's pretty typically part of a mall operation. You'll have that as a satellite use.
Okay, and then I see section 6 was added, which included warehousing / distribution / storage, assembly, some parts, schools and colleges?
Yep,
Also?
that's becoming something pretty common as well. Colleges and schools will actually lease space in malls and use as classroom space.
And bar room, or bar tap rooms was added also, I see.
Yes.
And then the last one is nursing homes, residential care facilities. In a mall?
You're seeing that in some of the strip centers,
Okay.
like in the case of the Candy Mall where they've got the strip center to the south. There have been cases where those have been redeveloped for long-term care as well.
Wow,
And
I didn't realize that.
I don't see it happening, but, you know, it's a possibility here in Willmar, and it's something that the Planning Commission did not think was incompatible with the use of that property.
Yeah,
So-
well, I know they need to fill it up to be successful, and we have parameters of what they can and can't do there, but in general, big box stores and malls have helped closing a lot of small businesses. They're moving them out of downtown, they're moving them out of North First Street to the mall.
And now
And
the
it-
big
and it-
boxes in the malls are feeling the pinch from Amazon and the internet. So they used to beat up on the small towns, now they're getting beat up on, and it's a whole different dynamic in retail. So
Right.
it's actually by the I think the Amazon, the internet economy is probably helping smaller retails, the niche retailers, and the ones that were beat up by the big boxes. They're staging a little bit of a comeback because they can offer the services that the big boxes can't.
Okay. I just wanted that clarified, because I didn't realize some of these were even in that ordinance, because I haven't seen that ordinance that has that list. Okay, thank you, Bruce.
You know, and the reason it's never been an issue in the past is when people think of malls, they think of retail and maybe a few service businesses in there, and we've never had the need to look outside those parameters. But now with the changing economy, we need to keep that big concrete building full and generating taxes. You bet.
Thank you.
Additional discussion? Seeing and hearing none, we'll introduce the ordinance text amendment relating to shopping center districts, assign it a number, and publish it. Roll call.
Councilmember Meske.
Aye.
Plowman.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Christensen.
Aye.
Schwantes.
Aye.
Alvarado.
Aye.
Osmus.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That resolution passes as well. Next is the consideration of an ordinance for sale of real property to Habitat for Humanity. Mr. Peterson.
Mayor Kelvin, members of the council. Several years ago, Habitat for Humanity approached the city with a request for one of the city lots that it owns down on 14th Avenue Southeast. This is some property that was gifted to the city years ago by a developer that did the Dana Heights development. When he finished up what he wanted to develop, he had some extra property and he gifted it to the city. A number of years back, 14th Avenue was extended through this property and tied into the area behind the roller rink. In that process, the city ended up with about 8 or 9 developable lots. So a couple of years ago, the city did gift one of those properties to Habitat, and Habitat paid the assessments that were against that property. What's being proposed now is that the city gift another property to Habitat, and that Habitat pay the roughly $10,000 in special assessments that are against the property. The property that's being proposed for gifting now sits on the corner of 14th Avenue. It's actually a couple lots to the southeast of the property that was gifted to them a couple years ago. There's the Habitat house, then there's a pond, then there's 2 vacant lots, and they've requested the corner lot. Both of those lots are developable. They're both decent lots, but they wanted the corner lot. It's a recommendation of staff that we keep this process moving forward, that the council introduce the ordinance for the sale of real property, and that the council consider it at a public hearing on April 16th.
Okay.
I will introduce that.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to introduce an ordinance for sale of real property to Habitat for Humanity. And I don't know if the folks from Habitat wish to speak or not, otherwise we'll just continue moving forward. Feel free to continue. Okay. Discussion, Councilmember Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Cities own these properties, right?
Yes.
So the city hasn't been liable for any taxes on them. We don't pay taxes on the property we own. So when they build this, whatever they're going to build on there, it will increase their tax base.
Absolutely.
Because they'll be taxed at full value, even though the lot is given to them at a pretty reasonable price.
Right. What happens with the sale has no impact on what the county assessor will do for a value.
Okay. And then these are pretty good-sized lots, so their building will come for the permitting process, I'm assuming, to the city. And do you know what they're going to build on it yet? Just a single-family home or a twin home or something? Or
yep.
Single family, so they've presented it already, or?
We have not seen it, no. That'll be the next step in the process. Once we get through the real estate transaction, I imagine they'll bring us plans and we'll deal with that.
Well, I'm happy that it's going to increase the tax base. Thank you.
Councilmember Nelson, followed by Fagerly.
Thank you, Mayor Calvin. Just clarification on the lots, Mr. Peterson. So Lot 4 is the one that's being talked about. You indicated there was one more lot, and I know there's a retention pond or a pond there. Which one is the pond? Because there's a lot of trees on those lots right now, right?
On these particular lots, there's some on the back part, but this is the pond that's on the south end of 14th Avenue. There's a small, it's just one residential lot, has a retention pond on it. The city gifted the property west of that pond to Habitat a couple years ago, and now this would be the lot that's to the east of that pond.
Okay, so, all right, I was thinking there were 2 lots left there after we gift this one?
Not on this side of the road. We own 3 larger lots on the north side of 14th
No,
Avenue.
okay, so this will fill in, that Lot 3 is still available for
Yep,
sale?
absolutely.
Okay, that's what I was trying to clarify. Thank you.
Councilmember Fagerly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Does this have to go to the planning commission, or did they approve it? Or?
This will go to the planning commission this Wednesday.
Okay, thank you.
Additional discussion. Roll call.
It's just a simple motion, Mr. Mayor.
I'm sorry, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. The motion does pass. So we'll have a public hearing on sale of real property to Habitat for Humanity, April 16th at 7:05 PM. Thank you, Mr. Peterson, and thank you, Habitat for Humanity, for being here. Your project continues to move forward, so thank you for all you do for our community. We appreciate it. So, next is consideration of a preliminary final plat for Trentwood Estates 4th Edition. Mr. Peterson.
Mayor Kelvin, members of the council, Warren Erickson, the developer of Trentwood Estates, has presented a proposal to replat a number of lots into Trentwood Estates 4th Edition. These lots were originally platted for twin homes, and because the demand has shifted considerably for his development to single-family cottage-style homes, he's requested that he be allowed to replat the twin home lots into single-family lots. So what we're actually seeing is less density in this area, and it will, I think it provides for about 14 or 15 single-family homes that could be developed on this revised plat. Because it's a very uncomplicated development, we're requesting that we do the preliminary plat and the final plat with one motion. This will allow the developer to get moving quicker. He's got to get into that private street and make some changes to sewer and water connections. Some of them have to be relocated so they match up with the new lot lines. And he's interested in doing that as soon as he can possibly get in there. So it's a recommendation of staff that the council approve the preliminary and final plats for Trentwood Estates 4th Edition with the conditions as noted, and those had to do with some additional easements as requested by municipal utilities, and defining who's paying for the relocated utilities and services, and all those costs will be borne by the developer.
I'll move staff's recommendation, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the preliminary and final plat for Trentwood Estates 4th Edition. Discussion. All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
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 That motion passes as well. I'm sorry, those opposed? That motion passes as well. Next is consideration of a letter of intent with Glacier Ridge Curling for the construction and lease of a new curling facility. Mr. Holland.
Mayor and council, we're going to have a couple people speak tonight about this. I would just say that I've worked on this for the last couple of months, and I've worked with staff, and I've worked with the curlers on this, and our city attorney also worked on this, and so this is the final product that we've produced. I have the recommendation for approval tonight by the council. I will take any questions and/or Mr. Scott, and we also have the members of the curlers here that I'm sure, somebody said he was coming with bells and whistles or something, is what I was told today. So they can answer questions as well, but Mr. Scott would like to make an opening comment.
Thank you, members of the council, mayor. On the letter of intent, just a quick summary of what is contained in the letter of intent and how this works. The letter of intent itself is not binding. It's a statement of purpose from both the city as well as the curlers that we're ready to move forward on these following basic terms. The next step, if this letter of intent is approved, would be for our office to prepare an actual build-to-suit lease agreement that would call for the construction of a new facility, how it's going to be funded, in part through fundraising by the curling club, as well as the terms of the subsequent lease agreement after the construction is completed. In the letter of intent, there's a few basic parameters. The first is that, and there's a typo in the CAR form, which I apologize for, the curling club would raise and donate to the city that should be 60% of the cost to construct the facility, and that donation obligation would be capped at a maximum of $2.2 million. The city would then essentially administer the project. It would be a city project to design and construct the new curling facility. The intent is it would be located on the Civic Center property. Once constructed, the city would also be committing in this agreement that would be drafted to lease the facility to the curlers for a minimum term of 25 years. And then there would be 3 potential 5-year renewal terms in the lease. And it would be for nominal consideration as rent, I think in consideration for the significant fundraising that the curling club would engage in to get the project built. I do want to make a note. I had just tried to throw this report together the best I could last week, and I tried to address some items that I don't normally concern myself with, one of which was the financial impact. I had in my notes from some early communications with staff some indication that this could be a $5 million project. I understand it was probably not good to include that in the CAR form because I think expectations have evolved from those early conversations. The intent would be that the city would stick within the kind of imagined budget where the $2.2 million maximum fundraising obligation would represent 60% of the total project cost. So if my attorney math is correct, that would be more like $3.6 million as a ballpark. But obviously that would be subject to change as the parties work together to determine what the scope of the project would be. At this point, it's an estimate. So I just want to explain where that $5 million number came from in the report. With that, if Ike has further comments or if you'd like to hear from the curlers.
Yes, I think in conversations that I've had with the curlers, the intent is that the project would be a $2.2 million project, not to exceed a $2.2 million project, and so the total amount would required from the curlers would be the 2.2, not 60%. Not that 2.2 represents 60%. I believe that is the understanding of the curlers in conversations. Okay, with that, we will go to, and again, this is a letter of intent and what we're trying to do, and let me remind the watching public that what we wanted staff to do was to get together with the curlers and bring something for us for consideration to move this project forward. So this is the next step in moving the project forward. And so, Mr. Annenberg, I believe that you would like to make a few comments as well.
Thank you, council members and Mayor. I appreciate everybody's time. This has been a 3 going on 4-year project for us behind the scenes and trying to get everything all so we can be standing in front of you. And I do appreciate your time, and I'm just going to tell one quick story as soon as I said I appreciate your time. I was down in Lakeville last weekend at a national curling tournament, and the team from New York came up to me, and as everybody's been introducing me, I'm the guy from Willmar that's trying to build a curling facility out in Willmar. And the team from New York stood up to shake my hand, and they said they were here 2 years ago. They absolutely loved it, and they thought it was the best run tournament they've ever had. So I think that holds to our members that we're pretty strong as far as being able to run some of the tournaments and get national recognition for it. So I do appreciate that. Everybody had gotten a copy of the letter of intent. Is there any questions that members have before I get into my presentation?
I just think we need a clarification on the dollar amount. So the dollar amount.
The dollar amount was a standalone building with its own chill plant for $2.2 million, right around the 2.2. It's a little bit above that, but we're not talking hundreds of thousands, just a couple thousands.
Okay. And then again, the commitment from the city was up to $15,500
Correct, for site ready.
And then we also agreed that we would put in or assist with the infrastructure.
That is correct.
Right.
Okay. With that said, if there's no questions as far as the letter of intent, I think you've got it all on your computers. And I do appreciate city staff with helping to do this. It's been 2 months working on this, and that gets to be time consuming. But as far as I'm concerned, we can just about delete this. The letter of intent, everything that we have written in there is, everything that we had proposed about a week ago or 2 weeks ago has changed in the last couple days. And we've been dealing on a standalone facility for $2.2 million, with the city working with us on a design to where we can use it for 7 months out of the year and the city get it for 5 months. We'll do the fundraising, we'll build the building, and then we'll give you the keys so you are actually the owners of it. And since then, I was shown the agenda for today stating that the total project cost is not to exceed $5 million, with the curling club donating $2.2 million to the city towards the $5 million project. Is that what we're actually talking about in the letter of intent? Is that what we're looking at doing? Because as Mr. Holland and I have talked with the attorney that's helping me out on this project, the letter of intent that you have in front of you reads on the very last page, the terms, and Mr. Scott had alleviated to this too. The terms contained in this letter of intent are subject to execution of a build-to-suit lease agreement satisfactory by both parties. None of the terms in this letter of intent shall become effective by virtue of this letter. This letter of intent is not binding contract. This document only lists proposed terms that may or not become part of the build-to-suit lease agreement or other agreement. This letter of intent is not intended to impose any obligation whatsoever on any party, including without any obligation to bargain in good faith or in any way with other terms of length. So basically, for the last 2 months, we've been going back and forth with terms, which basically is an outline which we had given to the council in December already. And now I see on the agenda that it says instead of the 2.2, we're looking at a $5 million project with us giving $2.2 million to the project. So now if you look at the letter of intent, basically it's not a legal binding contract, and if we start raising funds, this can be changed at any given time. So I need some kind of clarification from the city council as to which direction we're going to be going with this. Our board has already agreed that we want to work with the city. We're excited to work with the city. I think that the building will give a lot of benefits to the city of Willmar. We've also agreed that we will build right next to the Blue Line Club. Our board has approved that, so if the city wants to add it to the Civic Center, so there's no outdoor going between, that there's a hallway space or something, we've already voted on that and agreed that that would be very doable. Again, we do want something that the city is going to be excited about and be able to use other than just for curling. And then one other thing was brought to my attention this morning that kind of got me a little nervous. Mr. Holland was on open mic, and his words were, the city will determine, how much is spent on the building, where it will be located, what size. But of course, they need to agree to where it's going to be, because if we say, well, it's going to be this size or this big, and if they don't like it, they obviously don't have to be part of the project. So it's in our best interest to also see what they want, what size, scope, and where they would like to have it. So between last 2 weeks and today, I'm confused. A lot of our board members are confused. I've had a lot of conversations, a lot of emails, a lot of just, Tom, what's the letter of intent for? And I guess I'm looking for advice. We want to build. We want to be here. I've got people already asking to donate money. I've got 2 or 3 business people that have asked to be on the board to gather funds. And I'm not going to start anything until we've got clarification where we're at. I had sent out an email today to the members of the council and to Marv, with a proposal that we had some city attorneys in 2016 draft. Very simple. Other municipalities use it. Excuse the misspelled words and maybe one other county being mentioned when we went through. I missed that. But we are looking at a very simple process. Marcus Construction, which is known all over the country and has many awards for doing design and build, wants to partner with us on the building of this. We have, the city has told us that they'll help us with the bonding on a 60-40 split, with 60% of the funds up front before we can break ground and 40% being pledged. All I'm asking is to consider, and I'll work with the city however you guys decide or however you would like me to. I'll work with the city, but all we're asking is take a look at this. And according to an attorney that I have here in town that's been working with us, and according to Marcus, the lease development will work. And basically all it's stating is Marcus Construction has to come to you with the blueprints. They have to come to you with the design. It has to be approved. Of course, the permits have to be approved. We'll raise the funds. We'll put it in a local bank. We'll do the 60-40 with the 40 bond. As soon as the project's complete and Marcus has built it, you guys get the keys. We go into lease mode, which we'll have that drafted before we get to it, so that we know the terms of when we're in the building, how it's getting used. So again, I'm looking for some clarification as to which way we're going. Are we building a $5 million facility with $2.2 million of the curling club being dedicated to that? Or are we building a $2.2 million curling facility?
Well, I'll try to clarify, and I'll watch my city attorney, and if he puts his hand up, I'll stop talking. But at this point, my understanding is that you are proposing in the conversation through the email that we had today, is that you're proposing a design build and that you would build that facility for us in an amount approximately $2.2 million, and that then after it was built, you would have comply with all building codes, you would have signed documents, architectural signature, so we don't have to worry about the signed documents for the plans and specs, and that project would be a $2.2 million project. I believe that is the understanding. Mr. Scott, clarify me if I'm incorrect.
Well, I do want to address a few issues, and I want the council to know what my perspective was putting this together. This was based on conversations with staff, and then I know staff had subsequent conversations with the curling club. But I tried to explain the $5 million reference in the report. That's something I prepared. I put it together last week. That's not usually an area that I would try and opine on. It was something that I had in my notes from an early conversation. I don't think you can, don't pay any attention to the $5 million in the report. That I think was an error.
But your document clearly states $2.2 million.
Well, it does, but I want to make sure the council knows what I understood that to mean, and if we need to tweak this language, we'll need to do that. But I thought we were when I put that together, I thought we were essentially capping the curling club's maximum donation obligation at $2.2 million, such that if the city wanted to build a more expensive project, it could do so, but in no circumstances would the curling club have to donate more than $2.2 million. So the way that sentence in the letter of intent is written is the curling club would raise funds in the lesser amount of 60% of the total cost to design and build the center, so that if it came in at $2 million, the fundraising obligation would be $1.2 million, or an amount not to exceed $2.2 million. So no matter how much more expensive the project became, under no circumstances would the curling club be on the hook for more than $2.2 million. That's what that language means from my perspective. Obviously, if the city and the curling club want to do something different than that, we can make an adjustment tonight to that. And I can, produce a new draft to be executed at a later date. But that's that was my understanding when I put that language together, and that's what I think it means. The last issue I just want to address is this is written, the letter of intent is written so that this is a city project. The city would be at all times consulting with the curling club and seeking their input on how it would be designed. It would have the option to use the plans for the center that I understand the curling club has already developed or had produced for them, but the city would not be obligated to do so. It would be a city decision. And then when it comes time to build the project, it's a city project, which means it has to be competitively bid. So that's different, I think, than what was just presented to you, where it would be actually a privately run project on city land. And if that's the case, I think we frankly would need a different document than what you have before you right now.
Correct. And so the email that we got, and I received today, I received this afternoon, and that was the document where they were proposing to change it from the city doing the project to doing it, the project where they did it, and then that they donated the completed project to the city. That was brought to the table today, from my understanding. Is that correct, Mr. Amber?
Yes, sir, it was. Yep.
Yep. And so what you're basically saying is, similar to what the city attorney said, is that you would like to proceed with the design-build project in lieu of a city project.
That is correct. Yes, Marcus feels very comfortable with this project. They've worked with you on many other of these, from what they have told me, the representative from Marcus has told me, and they feel that this should be a slam dunk.
So as council, what we need to do is we need to determine what do we want. In the past, we said that we wanted staff oversight of the build, is what we said. And if we want to change the direction, the council has to provide that direction. But then also at the same time, we have to provide input to the city attorney so the documents can be prepared in a fashion that would be agreeable to both parties. This would be different than the direction we kind of took earlier. So, Councilmember Christensen, Councilmember Schwantes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It was my understanding from the beginning that the curling club would pay entirely for the building.
That is correct.
Whether it be privately done by you or overseen by the city. And I like the fact that you will do it as your own project and then turn the keys over. But I didn't envision us spending any money except for the infrastructure, and then there was, what, $15,000?
$15,500.
15.5.
Yeah, so is that your understanding too, that you're going to pay
That is my
entirely?
understanding, and this will eliminate some costs as far as staff time.
And whether it's 2.2 million or you guys end up at 3 million,
It's our cost, it's our baby.
Okay. I don't see anything wrong with that, other than when they have their final design, we need to have our staff take a peek at it and say, yeah, we can use this for, how many months a year are we intending to use it?
7 months for us, 5 for the city.
Okay. And then they can determine whether or not we can use that building for 5 months and what we would use it for. Because they might recommend higher ceilings. I don't know what, I'm not sure what we would use it for presently, but I understood that they would pay for the whole thing no matter what it costs, and they had to have X amount of dollars cash and the rest of it and pledges. That was my understanding, but I still don't know what we were going to use that building for. I don't know, for 5 months.
We'd talked about dry floor events. We'd placed the 2.2 number because that was the number we were given.
Right.
You know, what we heard tonight is that it may be a bit over the 2.2. But, you know, in my conversations with Mr. Amberg from the very beginning is that it had to be, the project had to be funded by the curling club, and that our contribution would be the infrastructure, the 15.5, and the land, is the conversation that I've had consistently over the last 2.5 years with Mr. Amberg and his staff.
We also need the lease agreement, I'm assuming, is going to be year to year, because we don't know what the costs are going to be, utilities and that from one year. I wouldn't
We
imagine.
pay the utilities.
Pardon me?
The original agreement that we had proposed was we pay for the utilities while we're in there, and that we also take care of the chill plant. The letter of intent that you have in front of you, city staff wants to take care of the chill plant. So again, we budgeted for the chill plant maintenance, but they had in there that they want to take care of it. So that's a negotiable thing.
That would be our cost too, then, I imagine, if we were taking care of the chill plant?
Correct. What the curling club is proposing is that they would take care of the chill plant, they would take care of the utilities for the 7 months that they're in there, and then the nominal rent that you've seen in the document is $1, and then it would be a 25-year lease with 3 5-year extensions.
25-year lease for the same price every year?
Because they're paying for the building, they're paying all the expenses themselves.
Who's maintaining it?
They are,
For 5 months, we are.
yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's going to cost taxpayers money then to maintain it unless we get it back from some dry floor events or something. Am I wrong?
No, you're correct. No, that was what was talked about, is that we may be able to use it for dry floor events. You know, I mean, there was talk about maybe soccer, but that was kind of quickly diminished because of the fact that it's concrete floor. You know, there was a number of things talked about, but nothing had been decided.
Okay.
That's correct. Councilmember Schwantes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just real quick comment as a follow-up to yours, Councilmember Christensen, is in conversations, it was also referenced that we need additional ice, and having this facility will reduce the pressure from the other facilities that we currently have. So it's a good investment in that regard. In regard to the design build versus built to suit concept, the council's priorities right now are infrastructure, stormwater, and the playgrounds. And having worked with the playground and realizing the amount of time it takes from staff to be able to work on a project like this, knowing that we have a contractor that the curling club has selected that is a respectable contractor, I would recommend that we approve allowing it to be design build and let the curling club assume those responsibilities. We, of course, would take a look at that and have the city approve the building before it's built, but I see no reason why it can't be overseen by the contractor.
Is that a motion?
Yeah, that's what I'm heading.
I think Mr. Muskie.
Mr. Scott, are you tracking with where I think a motion is going to come from here?
I'm tracking the discussion, yes, Mayor. So I just want to, again, kind of back up and put it in a little perspective. One of the fundamental decisions on this project is it a city project or is it a private project that's going to be constructed and then dedicated to the city upon completion of construction? My direction all along, I thought, was to make this a city project, and that's what this letter of intent does. So you can go in a different direction. That's the council's choice. But that's just so you understand you're doing something different than what has been developed so far. And I
Correct.
understand maybe the curlers have proposed something along those lines earlier, but.
Correct, and that's why I wanted to make sure you were tracking here.
I'm tracking it.
Because we are heading a different direction than we were. So I would be in the position to entertain a motion if there's a motion coming.
I'll second it.
There's no motion.
There's no motion. I said I would be willing to entertain a motion, I said.
Right.
I can make the motion. Actually, Kathy should make it. She said it very eloquently.
I'm not sure, did you say it was a motion? I didn't hear you say it.
I did not say it was a motion, so I was assuming there was conversation.
We're not done with you yet.
Oh, yeah.
So before we go down, I mean, unless we're going back to the original, is there a motion to move this forward, or do we want to continue discussion on what's on the table, which is the lease? Councilmember Meske.
First of all, I want to thank you for putting everything together, and I thank city staff as well. It feels like we're still in a negotiation here this evening, which I was hoping we would not be. I thought we were going to get a finished product brought to us, and I feel like it's a negotiating. So I'm curious. I mean, I've heard from one aspect. I've heard from the law. I would like to hear, I guess, from our staff, but I'd rather not hear from any of them. I would have rather hear that the project is complete and we have agreement. And so I don't want to be the naysayer, but it would be nice if all of this was ironed out before it came to the council, because I feel like right now we're negotiating around the table, and I would prefer to have not have done that. And so my recommendation would be, instead of making motions, to have staff and curling club get this piece ironed out where both sides are comfortable and bring it forward, because I'm hearing all kinds of things, and it just feels very disorganized, in that all of a sudden, wherever momentum is going with whomever's speaking, and that doesn't feel comfortable. We want to, and I like what you said, we all need to be enthusiastic moving the project forward. There shouldn't be winners and losers or in that perception. This should be a win-win for everybody. So it just feels like all of a sudden we're seeing some divisions between staff and the curling club and all that stuff, and I don't think those divisions need to exist.
Councilmember Osmus.
Okay. I think it's clear we all are in favor of this. I mean, I want nothing more than this project to succeed and for you to be able to go forward. And I guess I'm not exactly sure when things went sideways with what we thought was going to happen. I do think that the city, if it's going to come back to the city, I do know we have some concern about, and not that it's going to get trashed, okay, I don't mean it that way, but the city's going to own it, so they'd want to have some say in its maintenance. And whether that's, what cleaning supplies are used in the bathrooms, for that, that they know how to clean, the tiles and the cleaning facilities like that, and the maintenance of the ice plant. I would have to think we'd have to have some say in that, so that when we have it for the 5 months, that there's some continuity of maintenance. And I don't, for some reason, I'm getting the impression it's like the city's hands off for the 7 months while you have it. And I guess I would like it explained when that happened, or what is the.
It's not necessarily that we want a hands-off, it's just that when we originally proposed this project, to Ron's question, we wanted to assume the expenses. We want to take care of it's not that we don't want to clean all the toilets, but that's going to be our job. And we do want city staff to walk through and say, okay, how about this, how about that, this needs to be addressed. We do want city staff to know that as far as during the month that we hand it back, that we want a final walkthrough. When we go into it, we want a final walkthrough before we walk in. We want this to be a good partnership. We don't want a facility that in 20 years isn't going to be viable. So we've got a big commitment on the line, and I think the city does too, as in, this is part of a facility we want you to be able to use in your square footage when you're proposing to have dry ice time for somebody to come in. As back to your cleaning the tile and stuff, I've got 60,000 square feet of restaurants and apartments and stuff like that, but that's me.
Right.
Not everybody has that. So I know what you're saying. Your priorities might be a little bit different than mine. So I get that. And I think our curling club gets that too.
It's an exciting project, and I just don't want the impression out there that the city is putting up any kind of roadblocks or that there's any issue, because we want this to succeed. We want this for the community, for the state, and for the nation to have competitions here. I mean, it's exciting.
Well, to tell you the truth, and just to play on that, the Curling Association for the United States has been emailing and trying to figure out what's taken us so long. So they're waiting too.
And I'll kick the skunk out from under the porch, but basically where things started going sideways is after you met with 292 Design, when they came in and said,
That was part of it.
Yeah, I mean, so they had a conversation with 292 Design, and there were some things said there that probably shouldn't have been said. I'll say that should not have been said. And that's what caused the curling club to come up in arms. And that's why why we are at where we are today. I think when the city administrator left to go to his conference last week, he thought, I talked to him right before he left. He goes, yep, we got the curling thing done. It's all done. So he thought he was bringing you a done project.
Okay.
He didn't realize the conversations that were going to happen and how everything was going to get thrown up in the air and, they were going to be insulted and everything else, so.
I wouldn't call it insulted.
Well, I would.
As I say to my wife, I like to debate, not argue.
Exactly. Mr. Scott.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'm sorry, if I can make one final point on this, I understand the council's direction, I think. Certainly, I've been working closely with Ike on this. I can tell you, we both thought we were bringing a finished concept to you, and that's evidenced by the fact that the letter of intent's been signed by the curling club. So I'm surprised that we're going in this direction. However, I want to make sure that you understand I'm not intending that to be a critical comment. We obviously will be working with you on this new direction, but I did feel like I needed to make the council aware of that.
Correct, yes.
Thank you.
I was under that agreement as well, under that understanding as well. Councilmember Nelson.
Thank you. I just want to make sure we're providing enough direction to staff to get this done with the concept that was around the table if we're not doing a motion tonight. And I know from the letter of intent, we had a conversation about the signing of it, and I think that's how it was presented, that you had to sign it in order for it to come to us. And so.
Correct. It was suggested to us that if we sign it, then we have the ability of getting ahead of you or to you April 2nd today, where if we didn't sign it, then it goes on to the next council meeting before it gets presented again. So we went ahead knowing the attorney sat in on the meetings with me, and he said that, Tom, this letter of intent has no grounds, no merit, no nothing. If you sign it, basically it says nothing. So if you want to get in front of the council April 2nd, go ahead and sign it and get put on the agenda. So that's what we did.
Okay, so back to my original comment is, have we provided enough direction so that staff can go ahead and draw up the agreement if we aren't proceeding with it tonight?
Mr. Holland, do you have any questions that need to be clarified? I think what the council's saying is that they want you to take one more swing at the ball and maybe not have these external forces coming in. And so let's all agree that we're going to talk with the city attorney, the city administrator, and we're going to get this done. It's going to come back to us in 2 weeks.
Right.
With some type of an agreement.
Well, my understanding, you already have a draft ready to go, right?
We had gotten a draft from the city's attorneys, and Mr. Holland and Scott have not seen it yet. You guys are the only ones that have been privy to it. So I do feel kind of bad that they got left out, but everything happened really fast today. Mondays are tough for us. But I do apologize for that. But yes, we can get that to you so you both can see it and take a look at it.
Right.
And so I'll say to that document, that's the same document that we seen in 2016. I know for a fact the city attorney will have trouble with that. So you're going to have things you have to get hammered out with.
Sure.
And you and I didn't talk about that, but Councilmember Nelson and I talked about that this afternoon.
Okay.
And I think that's the one that we had seen that you showed us.
This document's been around for a while, and I do believe I probably showed it to you last September.
That was my
August or September.
Yep.
And you and I had an agreement that we would work with city staff on trying to get something done. And I did try that.
Okay. Sounds good.
Just got a question.
Councilmember Fagerly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Tom, for coming. Is there a reason why you couldn't maintain it all 12 months out of the year? And if the city needs it for dry floor space, they could rent it from you?
That's a great question, because somebody had asked me, why don't we sign a lease with the city? Matter of fact, a couple people have said it. Just for the land, we maintain the building, we take care of the building and ask for a tax abatement from the city so we don't have to pay taxes on it, and then figure out how we're going to pay the additional, some expenses. Marv's got a look on his face. It didn't come from you guys. It's come from other city people. Matter of fact, we've been asked, how come we don't make it as a church? We could have Sunday mass and then curl the rest of the week. So we could have our deductions there. So there's been a couple different proposals out there. We really feel that the city could utilize it. I mean, if that's something that the city feels that we should be doing is maintaining it, cleaning it, and collecting rent from the off-season, I'd have to take it to the board. We haven't discussed it.
Just an option, I guess.
Councilman
Yes, it
Miskey.
is.
Well, just so you know that the city council is not in the business of having letters of intent signed so things can be in front of us. I find that statement to be a little disturbing. However, you said you like to debate, and I think it's time to go back and iron it all out, because again, I just keep going back to what you said. It should be a win for everybody, and everybody should be enthusiastic about it, and we won't let this hiccup in any way infringe on that. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you for your presentation, thank you for your input, and we look forward to a agreement in front of us in 2 weeks.
Thank you for your guys' time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Next is approve an agreement with Canada County for assessing services. Mr. Scott.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. You have already entered into an agreement with the county to take over the assessment services for the city. Pursuant to that agreement, you had negotiated rates for calendar year assessments for 2016 and 2017, and the contract contemplated that beginning in the calendar year 2018 and every year thereafter, the county would move to a per parcel assessment charge to the city. And what the city's received from the county is essentially the rates they are charging all the local governments that they're going to be performing assessments for, with the residential and commercial per parcel charges for the years 2018 through 2021. I believe that you can simply pass a motion to accept those charges, and those charges will take effect by virtue of the contract you're already a party to with the county. The county had sent a separate contract to the city for consideration. I think that's just the contract they send to all the local governments. I don't believe that needs to be executed for these rates to take effect under your current contract. But just in case, I guess the motion I would recommend would be to adopt a resolution accepting the county's proposed per parcel charges for years 2018 through 2021, and authorizing the mayor and city administrator to execute any documentation required by the county to make those effective. I don't think anything needs to be executed, but just in case the county does require something, that would be giving authority to execute that document.
I'd offer that motion.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve an agreement with Canada County for assessing services and have the city attorney, the city administrator and mayor sign on behalf of the city anything required by the county to make that happen. Discussion. Councilmember Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know, looking at the charges of other counties around us, I'm wondering why do they want to go up to $14 by 2021? The others, it looks like they're going to try to get up to $12 per parcel and then kind of leave it there. If you compare the two, why do they want to charge so much more? I think we have more parcels in many of these counties. So there's more revenue in Candiwag County. Why would we want to go up to $14 a parcel in 2021? After reading the notes on the surrounding counties, I mean, same with commercial. They want to get it up to $25. The others, $15, $20, $11.50, $12.36, compared to $25 or where they want to be. What's driving this? I think there's a note here that one of them is going to do somebody do it privately.
Yeah, there are counties that do it privately, have private contractors.
Yeah.
They hire. Yes.
But why would we agree to jump it up so fast to that amount?
Do we know what we were paying for assessing services before?
There wasn't a per parcel charge that was charged in the original agreement that we had with the county assessor's office upon the abolishment of the city offices. It was, the budget money just got transferred over to the county, so there wasn't an actual per parcel charge. In that agreement, it said that there would be a per parcel at the end of, what was it, the 18 months or whatever the contract read. So there's no way to determine how much it was per parcel.
But what did we pay when we had our own assessing department? What was the budget? Mr. Oakens, do you know that number?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, if you look at page 2 of the old agreement, it was $242,000 for 17.
That was
due on January 31st.
But that wasn't the money that the city was paying to operate its own.
Yes, sir. If you look at page 2 of the agreement, it started in July of 16 through 17. It spells it both out there. I looked at the 2018 budget. The 18 budget had $122,000 budget.
Yeah, what I'm saying was, what did it cost when we ran our own assessing office itself?
$241,000.
So per parcel, how many parcels?
Well, there's about 8,000 city parcels, right? And about 700 commercial. Bruce, do you remember those numbers?
I do not.
Mayor, I think you're fairly close. You're in the ballpark on the parcels, and then there was, exempt parcels as well.
Mr.
There
Mayor,
were
there's
additional-
6,338 residential parcels and 1,150. That's on the second page of your summary. So there's roughly 7,500 parcels.
7,500 parcels?
Yes, sir.
Total?
That is what is in the committee action form.
Well, this is considerably cheaper than what we were doing before.
Yeah, I did the math.
It's a lot cheaper.
Well, you that were just clicking away, what'd you come up with?
Per parcel?
Yeah,
I came up with $32.
okay.
But some of that would be commercial, some would be residential, and we don't know what the split was. However, I'm comparing to the other counties, as you can see.
Yeah, but I think the deal with the other counties is some of those costs could be absorbed in other areas of their budget.
The other counties also aren't putting it out by year. They're proposing, but it doesn't mean they wouldn't change it again next year. So this is putting it out for 4 years. Theirs is just a guesstimate.
But our parcels are so close together as compared to the rest of the county and Raymond and all these other cities. Follow me? It's
Yeah,
pretty easy.
We've had this conversation before, Councilmember Christensen, and it's good discussion because we have different council members at the table now. But the consensus of the council at that time was to move those services over to Candido County. When we look at consistency in assessing across the county, when we look at having one office, when there's a question, they go to one office. There's consistency between New London and Spicer and Willmar and Pennock and Raymond on how the process is done. I think there's value in that. And when you do the math, as you stated, even with these new rates, we're still considerably less than we were paying. I think the county would probably tell you that they were undercharging before we came in because they maybe hadn't looked at it real closely. That's not a fair statement, but, they're looking at it a lot closer now that they have the numbers to look at. I think this is an example of a good partnership that we have with the county, and I'm assuming that our city administrator negotiated this with the county administrator, and these were the numbers that they agreed to bring forward. So I'm assuming that's what happened, correct?
Actually, no, I would like to take credit for that low rate, but no, it was actually just sent to me.
So how did it come to us then?
It was just sent to us.
Oh. Okay.
If I may, Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Christensen.
I don't know what their budget is for assessing, and I don't know if all these dollars go to that budget or if they go into the general fund. I think the general public is concerned these days in where our taxpayer dollars are going, whether it's paying for assessing or your property taxes, because if it's going to another department, I don't like it. I mean, the general public is faith in government is dwindling, especially locally. I mean, it's I don't know if that's strictly their budget dollars or if it's going into the general fund. And I think it's something we should be aware of. I mean, again, it's information that we probably could have. If they have a budget and they show us that this is the amount of dollars it takes to do it, I'm fine with that. But I don't know if it's going to the general fund or strictly to their department. And then if there's money left over at the end of the year in their department, that goes into the general fund. I mean, they operate similar to ours. And I would like to know that before we approve this. I mean, you could make a motion, and maybe there already has been one made, but
There's a motion on the table, correct?
I'd like to know what their budget is. And I mean, I wish I could sell houses like this. Yeah, okay, next year's going to be $10,000 more. It doesn't work.
You could introduce a motion to,
or amend the motion.
yeah, I mean, you could make a motion to have staff go back and get additional information.
Well, we have a motion on the table, so I mean, that have to be a friendly amendment to it, if nothing else.
Councilmember Nelson.
Just two comments. I think when we did the original agreement, I think this was sort of implied and built into it. And just the other comment that our taxpayers should be happy with us because we just stated it's costing them a lot less to do it this way. So we are creating an efficiency. So I think this was the direction that was the intent in the original agreement, was it not?
Councilmember Meske.
Well, I'm looking at it, and yes, we are saving money in the interim, but Councilmember Christensen is right. As you accelerate this, I mean, if I went with, I don't know if I heard the number right, 6388 or something about for residential. I mean, you go from a 76,600 to in the 4 years covered here to 89,000, which is an increase of 13,000. And at 89, you're getting closer to, that's over a third of the expense of doing it ourselves. So I get the expense, but how many extra parcels are we adding in Willmar every year? I don't know if the workload grows that considerably. And if we were doing it all as a lump sum before, was there ever any consideration of a lump sum over a 4-year kind of a period that you could agree to, or am I just thinking off the top of my head? Because I look at that and I go, well, it averages at about 81,000. If you could just, I don't know if that's even something that could be negotiated, that you have a set volume, because I don't see the volume growing that significantly in a four-year window. I wish it would, but I don't think it would.
Well, if we use the numbers that I believe I heard from Mr. Okins, last year we paid him $242,000.
I thought it was all the cost for us to do it.
He said that's what we paid him, but that also was the cost it cost us to do it, and we did it ourselves, correct?
The $241,000 was for 2017. It's in the agreement. The agreement presently in place has a higher rate than what they're proposing to you tonight for residential.
Right.
On an estimate.
Mr. Mayor, the second number, 241,868, is what we paid them for 17. That isn't what it cost the city prior to us turning it over to the county. That wasn't their cost. That's what we paid them.
What was our cost savings?
We don't know. So we paid them $32 a parcel for 2017, okay? So that isn't what it cost when we had it in City Hall. That is not, we paid them 2 years, $366,000 to take over 16 and 17. 16 was, I don't know if it was a partial year or not, but, so that's what we paid them. So if you look at it, we overpaid them considerably, now they want to increase it again.
Mr. Wilkins.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, those numbers that are in the present agreement were based on what the cost to the city was at the time, if I remember correctly, but I would have to research that. And if you look at the time that they took over mid-year. So.
Took over July 1, didn't they?
July 31st was when the first payment was due, which is approximately half of the 241. And then there were some other incidental costs that were included, but it's all spelled out in the agreement that's in your packet.
Councilmember Schwantes.
If I remember correctly, the county also took it upon themselves to reevaluate every single parcel in the community. They went through a lot of work and effort the first year, and that was the reason why it was an additional cost.
Correct. You don't have a 2016 budget with you?
That's what happened here.
I just happen to have it.
We're spending taxpayer dollars, first of all, and we also pay property taxes to the county. You know, and in my figuring, assessing should be part of the budget that the county has, and it shouldn't come from, put it this way, when the city did assessing, we didn't charge each parcel X amount of dollars. We ran the department and paid them whatever it costed to run it. Okay? We did. We had a city assessing, we paid them.
But then the city had that expense of that employee and
It was
everything else that goes with it.
It was in our property taxes. It was in, that's why we pay property taxes. The city collects them, the county collects them, school district collects them. Part of their duty in collecting those taxes is to do the assessing part of the city's parcels. Now we're paying in an additional one besides our property taxes per parcel. The city is, but we're paying it for the taxpayer.
But the taxpayer is no longer paying for the work to be done from the city. But they will be paying, I suppose you could argue, county taxes towards that. But there's definitely some numbers that could be looked at to see what the costs are.
I suggest we do it.
But is staff comfortable that these numbers are a better deal for the city, even with the acceleration of assessments for residential up into 2021? Is a question that I would have, because we should have crunched those numbers to know that those are acceptable increases.
Okay, I have the numbers for you. 2013 cost the taxpayers of Willmar $225,833 for the assessing department. 2014 was $257,681. 15 was $268,111, and 2016 was $328,335. So our increases are greater than the increases that they're proposing. This is based off the budget as presented. States that it's actual budget proposed. So I'm guessing the budget and the proposed were unaudited, correct? The ones you say are actual budget numbers, the other ones are budgeted and the other one is proposed, so those would be unaudited numbers, correct?
Those would be proposed numbers, not actual costs.
Correct, right. So the 2015 numbers would be the budgeted numbers, the 2016 numbers would be the proposed numbers. So, and I think I heard both Councilmember Christensen and Councilmember Meskey say that, it's about between 80 and 90,000 for the county to do it. We were paying 328 before. That's still considerably less money at the end of the day. So we have a motion that's been made and seconded. Additional discussion. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign.
Aye.
The motion passes. Next, we have the city administrator's comments.
Mayor and council, just a reminder, tomorrow night, Robin Island Master Plan meeting. On the 10th, we will have a citizenship ceremony at the Barn Theater in the morning. On the 11th, we have a speaker coming into town for the Human Rights Commission. And on the 12th, we're going to have some municipal league training out at the conference center. So if you have any questions about these events, please drop me an email and I can give you more details. Thank you.
Again, to the mayor's comments, I met with a group of individuals this afternoon, and they're looking at exploring a local option sales tax for Willmar. And it would be a citizen-driven project. And I told them that I would bring it up under mayor's comments tonight. It's in the very preliminary numbers, in the very preliminary discussions, but nothing has been solidified. But just so that the council is aware that those conversations are happening within the community. And they asked to meet with myself this afternoon, along with a couple council members, and I was able to attend. The council members were unable to attend, but that is what the message that they were bringing to me. So I said that if they wanted to prepare the question, we could find out how long ahead of time we'd have to have the question prepared, and that that if it was kind of what the council wanted last time was a citizen-driven project rather than a council-driven project. So this appears to be a citizen-driven project that'll be coming before us. I would anticipate they'd be in front of us within the next 30 days or so. And then the other thing I have on that is that, not on local option sales tax, but on the Highway 23 Coalition, there will be a trip out to Washington, D.C. In, I think it's the 22nd through the 24th of May. And I would like to attend that, and Councilmember Nelson would like to attend that as well. So we kind of have to get an answer to them. If the council's opposed to us attending that, we need to hear about it. But this came up last week, and so Councilmember Nelson and I would be attending that, would be there for 3 days. So if the council's opposed to that, this would be the time to let us know, rather than after we get our tickets and everything and you say, no, we don't want you to go. So the reason that it wasn't on the agenda is because it came up that quick. Okay, we'll proceed with that. Councilmember Christensen.
Just a concern. I read in the paper today that the county is having their border review next week. And ours is the following week. So you go to ours, you can't step up to the next one. You know, if you got turned down at the city's border review, you could usually go to the county. That would be your next step. And then the next one would be the state. What are we going to do?
When I got here, Councilmember Nelson just showed me it. This is the first I heard about it, was tonight. When I got here, Councilmember Nelson showed me the border reviews, so.
It defeats the purpose of us doing one if the county one is already done, does it not?
Can we recognize Judy Tom?
Does it not?
Excuse me, Mayor and Council, typically it's all the local boards are held in April, and the county board is always in June. So I don't know if it was a misinterpretation of one of the jurisdictions within the county, but the county board is always held in June to allow for all the other jurisdictions to have their boards first and follow the normal process.
I'll read it again when I go home, but it said county board of review, and I thought, well.
Well, ours is the 16th.
Right. what should have been after theirs, if theirs is next week.
Right.
But I'll read it again when I get home. And
Townships are all having theirs in the
Yeah.
next couple of weeks, so.
April is all the local jurisdictions, the cities, the townships, everybody.
And you
I'll
have to
read it
go to
again
the
to see if
local
it
one
says-
first, no matter what. And if you do that, then you can proceed.
Okay,
The meeting for the county board should be listed at the bottom of the equalization notices that each and every one of you as property owners would have received,
But we don't have that with us today, so that doesn't
No.
help us.
so they could double check that too.
Okay,
and one other comment, constituent called me and said, you know, if the MUC is going to build a new office building, maybe the city should move into theirs, the MUC, because that's going to be empty also. That's it. Last time I said it's getting warmer, it was reverse psychology. I'm going to say it's getting colder.
Councilmember Fontes,
Pass, thank you.
Councilmember Alvarado.
Now, do you have something with smoke detectors coming up?
Yes, on Saturday.
Saturday, we have the smoke detector program coming up with the fire department. Make yourself aware of that. To kind of go on what our city administrator said, on April 11th, we have Paul Keevil speaking on Curiosity, Courage Community, writer, educator, and activist. I think it would be something to take the time to hear what he has to say. He's going to be at the community center in the morning. He's moving out to the college in around lunchtime, and then he'll be at the WEAC Center in the evening. So plan on attending that. Don't forget to drive safely. This is a cruel trick that we're experiencing winter in April, but just be aware of the conditions. Don't forget your driving skills. I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Osmus.
I have nothing.
Councilmember Meske.
I'll also echo what Mr. Holland was talking about for the citizenship ceremony at the barn on April 10th at 11 o'clock. They are trying to get the people that are going to receive their citizenship, they're trying to see if they can get them as close from the Willmar area as they possibly can. So it should be a great event, and it will highlight Willmar. And like I said, it's very difficult to get those. And we're hoping that we can fill the barn, and there'll be a reception afterwards, and everybody is invited.
Thank you. Councilmember Paulman.
I'll pass, thank you.
Councilmember Fagerly.
I'll pass, thanks.
Thank you all. I'll entertain a motion to, I'm sorry, Councilmember Nelson.
That's all right.
Sorry, I didn't mean
I'm
that.
going to end with food. I just wanted to make sure you all got a reminder about the April 16th meeting, and we had agreed to serve lunch. So I don't know if that means we should come a little before 11:45, but there will be something
Yes.
simple to eat before we do our Board of Review, Board of Appeal and Equalization.
There will be.
Yes, there will be food.
Yeah, at the last meeting, last year, the council did say that they wanted food at that from now on, and staff had not remembered that, so that was relayed to staff today, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded, we're adjourned.
Okay.